Delighted to welcome former Conservative MP Sir Michael Fabricant. Sir Michael, welcome to Talk Drive.
Good afternoon. How are you, Mark?
I'm very well, and I'm in better shape than Richard Hughes, who has resigned as the head of the Office for Budget Responsibility. Was this the right decision?
Well, he was scapegoated today in the statement on Parliament. And I noticed, by the way, that Rachel Reeves unusually decided not to turn up. Normally she would turn up for this sort of important event. Instead, there was some pipsqueak Labour MP, who I've never heard of, or hardly, who gave evidence to the rest of the House of Commons on her behalf. As for Richard Hughes, well, they concentrated on him a great deal because they didn't want to talk about all the lies that Rachel Reeves had been speaking recently about this budget. And now it turns out that the OBR are saying it was lies as well before the general election. Remember that 21 billion black hole, which none of us could understand because they could still afford to pay those junior doctors who are going on strike anyway, and rail workers. It turns out there was no black hole, like the Conservatives have been saying all along. But the exciting thing, I think, will be tomorrow, because tomorrow Richard Hughes was due, and I hope still will, give evidence to the Treasury Select Committee. Now he's resigned, I hope he will still go. And you know what? He'll be absolutely free to tell the truth about what's really been going on, because as chief executive of the OBR, he would have been constrained to some extent.
Is Rachel Reeves' position as Chancellor still tenable, Sir Michael?
Rachel Reeves's future is inextricably tied up with that of Keir Starmer. There is no doubt in my mind that if Rachel Reeves goes, Keir Starmer will go too. And that's why the two of them have been out in front of the cameras trying to defend each other. One of your callers said, maybe now's not a good time to have a general election. Well, it certainly ain't a good time for the Labour Party to have a general election. They would lose over 300 seats, according to an aggregate of polls over the last few weeks. If there were an election tomorrow, they've got a big majority. I don't think they're going to call a general election. I do think that come the May elections, if not sooner, Starmer and Reeves and most of the cabinet will be history, because Labour MPs are terrified of losing their seats. I'm talking to you from Lichfield at the moment. The current polling has the chance of the Labour MP for Lichfield holding his seat is down to just 4%. That's electoral calculus.
Well, I'll tell you what that means. It means that Fabbers is coming back.
Well, Fabbers isn't coming back, because Fabbers had done 32 years in the House of Commons, and he's had enough of doing all that. Actually, the polling is that Reform would win in Lichfield. But who knows? I sadly think it's going to be some 2 or 3 years before we have a general election, because turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
Can you remember in all of your years, Sir Michael, such a pathologically dishonest administration as this one?
You know, things went wrong with the Conservative Party after about 11 years of government. I have never known a government, in all honesty, to collapse. They're not just dishonest, they're incompetent. And our friend Keir Starmer seems incapable of actually giving an honest answer. And the public see through all this. The public know he's a pathological liar. And we certainly know now as a fact that Rachel Reeves is. She said in November, I didn't have any information from the OBR. And we now know that the OBR gave it to her on the last day of October. She had all that information. So she lied about the £21 billion black hole, which is what they were talking about before the general election. And she lied when she told the cabinet that there wasn't enough money and they would have to raise taxes, when we now know that, in fact, there was a £4.5 billion surplus. She needn't have raised taxes at all. But actually, remember the context of all this. She tried to cut the welfare bills. And what happened? There was a huge Labour Party rebellion. She knew that she and Keir Starmer were on the ropes. They knew that if they didn't do something, i.e., more money on welfare, they'd be out. And that's what they did. And that's why we are all going to be paying much more tax.
Now, let me be very clear at 11 minutes past 5 in the afternoon. The Prime Minister will argue that he inherited a complete economic mess from the Conservatives, depleted public services, a bloated welfare state and a failed open borders experiment. Labour are very clear that they've inherited a mess from the Conservatives, and what they're trying to do is fix that, tackling child poverty by lifting the two-child benefit cap, all the rest of it. Let's take a listen to Starmer defending his record.
We had already made commitments, which I think I've expressed to you and many others many times over, that we were going to protect our public services, particularly NHS, to cut borrowing costs and to bear down on the cost of living. So we had, on the one hand, £16 billion less than we might otherwise have had. We had clear commitments that we'd made throughout the process as to what it was we were going to achieve. Therefore, against that backdrop, it was inevitable that we would always have to raise revenue. So there's no misleading there.
Well, do you think Richard Hughes, the head of the Office for Budget Responsibility, Sir Michael, is the scapegoat here? And do you think that Starmer and Reeves will use his departure as cover for their own political futures?
And that is exactly what happened in the statement in the House of Commons today. There was very little talk about all the lies, and we just heard one, by the way, from Keir Starmer. The lies that were put out are indefensible. So instead, they went on attack with the OBR. But let's be clear. When Labour was elected, there was a surplus with the Exchequer. There was growing employment and there was growth. And where are we now? The United Kingdom is in economic decline. The unemployment is going up.
Yeah.
And there is no growth.
Well, inflation is almost double what it was under Rishi Sunak in July of 2024. Do you know what I think is particularly troubling for this Labour government is that they're losing the left-wing media now as well, Sir Michael, because Chris Mason, who's the political editor of the BBC, has said that the corporation feels that it was deeply misled by the messaging from the Chancellor, which is very, very unparliamentary language for the political editor of the BBC. Ed Conway at Sky has been tweeting and responding to that clip from Starmer, Sir Michael. Ed Conway said the Prime Minister keeps repeating the figure of £16 billion in relation to the OBR's latest forecast, giving the impression that this would have left a big hole in the public finances. What he fails to acknowledge, says Ed Conway, is that this is literally only one part of the story. He goes on to explain the OBR downgraded the fiscal numbers by 16 billion due to weaker productivity, but it also simultaneously upgraded them by a whopping 32 billion pounds, according to the IFS. He basically says, banging on about the £16 billion productivity, as the PM did repeatedly in his press conference, is simply not the full picture. The lies continue.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's pretty obvious now to everyone. I think the only people backing Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves is the socialist worker. I think even the Mirror and the Guardian have seen through him. It's absolutely extraordinary. I must say that Chris Mason is a very different sort of journalist at BBC from his predecessor, Laura Kuenssberg. He's actually someone who is prepared to make an analysis and isn't actually committed to either the Labour Party or the Conservative Party and is prepared to tell the truth. I will also declare that Chris Mason is a mate of mine, but no. It is fascinating, isn't it, that even the BBC now and the BBC editors in charge of Chris Mason feel that he just has to tell the truth about what everybody knows in the country, and that is that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves will do anything to try and save their own necks.
Most definitely. Jo has messaged the show, Sir Michael. She says, "Hi, Mark, it's Jo from Shrewsbury. There's only one of three. Yeah, there's only one of three ways."
Not Shrewsbury.
Did I say that? Is it Shrewsbury?
You said Shrewsbury. I think we all say Shrewsbury.
Yeah,
well,
that's 'cause you're,
I don't know. Some people
I'll
apparently east of the river in Shrewsbury call it Shrewsbury.
Yeah, but what it is, you're a lot
that.
posher than I am. I'm not even a Knight of the Realm, Sir Michael. Jo in Shrewsbury, there's only one of three ways this country is heading. One, we'll all just sit back as we are now and accept that our country is changing for the worse and will never be the same again. 2, civil unrest, or 3, a general election? We can't continue like this any longer. Let's hope it's number 3, ASAP. So many of my viewers and listeners, Michael, want a general election.
Yeah, well, I was shopping in Lichfield this morning, and 3 separate people came up to me and said, how long can this go on for? But they have got a massive majority. As I said earlier, turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Current polling says that if there were a general election, over 300 Labour MPs would lose their seats. So, you know, I'm afraid we're stuck with them. I don't think we're going to be stuck with Starmer and Rachel Reeves. If they don't go now, and if they had any sense of honour, they would go now. If they don't go now, they'll be gone after the May elections, when it'll be pretty clear that the Labour Party is going to be in a worse state than even the Conservative Party was at the last election.
So, Michael, I need to get to Rowan and Barry next, but just a couple of seconds if you can. Jonathan Gullis, former Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, has defected to Reform alongside 2 other former Conservative MPs. Can you categorically rule out that you would support or join Reform in the run-up to the next election?
I never rule out anything, but yeah, I don't see it. I'm not interested. I mean, look, I think Jonathan Gullis wants to get back into the House of Commons in his Stoke-on-Trent seat. All the signs are that they will elect a Reform MP, whoever it is. So I guess that's why he's made that decision. I certainly am not motivated by that. I will tell you, though, something somewhat controversially. I was doing some leafleting in a local election we have in Armitage near Lichfield, and I met up in the pub by accident with a whole team from Reform. And we were chatting, and I said, you know what, although you're a different party, I sort of regard you as close cousins, but on the bad side of the family. You know, it's not like meeting Labour MPs. Basically, at the end of the day, there are some profound differences. Like, I cannot understand why Reform is supporting the fact that you get benefits for 10, 20 children or whatever, as many as you want. I mean, this is completely crazy, and that's why I'm pleased that the Conservative Party is still saying benefits for 2 children are enough. But, you know, generally speaking, what I believe in, what the Conservative Party now believes in with Kemi Badenoch, almost forgot her name there, and with the Reform, are pretty much the same. But no plans at all to join the Reform Party. I'm happy. Anyway, I've got lots of friends in the Conservative Party. It's not only a political party, it's a bit of a club, actually, so I rather enjoy it.
There you go. Listen, we loved having you on the show, Sir Michael. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Sir Michael Fabricant is a former Conservative MP and now broadcaster and political commentator.